Welcome to our Linux classes. So in this section we are going to understand about file system basics. So the objective of this section is that after the completion of this section you would be able to identify the file system hierarchy, access the contents of file system, and you can use the hard links and soft links to make the multiple names, search for files on mounted file systems. So what we are going to achieve after this section, we would be understanding about identifying file systems and devices with practice lab session, mounting and unmounting file systems with practice lab session, making links between files, and locating files on file systems. So these are the core section, or we can say this is the content of this core section. This is what we are going to understand in this section. So let's start. So very first thing which we are going to understand about file system. A file system, in simple word, it is a logical collections of files or directory on a partition or disk. A file system is an organized structure of data holding files and directory residing on a storage device such as the physical disk or partition. Your hard drive can have various partitions which usually contain wall file systems like your /home, /tem, /root file system. So these are the we can say the file systems that we have created on the system. When we install an operating system, what happened? By default you will see that few file systems are created on the system, or while doing the installation it will ask you what file systems you want to create. After you do the installation, you may need a lot of other file system as well. Suppose on my Linux box on which I have installed Linux operating system, application team or database team, they have to install application on that box. So in that case they need their file systems that should be created on the Linux box. So as a Linux admin, it's our responsibility to create the file systems for them. So what does it require to create the file system? The very first requirement is that storage. You need the disk. Once the disk will be allocated to the Linux box, you can create the file system on that and allocate that file system to the respective team, like your application or database team, whosoever wants to use your system. So this is the basic idea about file system and disk. A file system is a logical collection of files on partition or disk. A partition is a container for information and can span on entire hard drive if needed or if desired. Your hard drive can have various partitions which usually contain only one file system, such as one file system housing the / file system, and another is containing home. So what does it mean? It is saying that suppose you have one disk and you have created 3-4 partitions. You can have multiple partitions on the disk. But if you are using the file system like ext3, ext4, xfs, so for the same disk, whatever the partition you have, all the partitions should have the same file system. Suppose in my disk I have 3 file systems. I have 3 partitions with the disk. I have created 3 partitions on a disk. So whatever the file system I am going to give to my disk, that would be same. The first partition, if I have formatted with ext4, then other partition should be ext4 only. If we have separate disk, like I have 2 disks connected to my system, one disk I can use as a ext4 and another disk I can use as a other file system like ext3 or xfs. But if I want to use different file system for the same disk, so that is not possible at all. So this is the basic idea about the file system. Directory structure that we have already discussed. If you'll remember, in the first or second section we have detailed discussion about the hierarchy of the directory. Unix uses a hierarchical file system structure much as like upside down tree. It started with /root at the base of the file system, and all other directories spreading from there. That we have already discussed, like our file system is always started with slash, and that contains other files and directories. And each directory or file is uniquely identified by its name and the directory in which it resides. And a unique identifier, it is identified by the inode number. The advantage here is that existing hierarchy can extend it at any time by adding the new disk or partition. So it is saying that it is always started with slash, and in the slash, suppose I have created few file systems like slash home, slash temp, slash opt, slash usr, or where. Now I need to extend my hierarchy. I want to extend my tree. So I can do one thing, I can attach one storage disk and I can create the file systems. So in this way, what will happen? The hierarchy of the file system can be extended at any time. So friends, that's all for this lecture. Hope you got an idea about file system. And no worries, once we have the lab session, then you can understand how we can create the file systems, how the disk can be allocated to the servers, and how we can create the partition. So thanks for watching, and if you have time, please join with me in the next lecture.